The people outside cannot withstand the attack anymore. Two men were looking out the window at the battle from the living room of the mansion in the center of River Valley Manor. Seems like it's time for me to act. The bald old man nodded. We have defended for so long. Xena should have eradicated all the traitors in the organization. My life depends on you now, my old friend. The gentleman nodded and prepared to walk out. Suddenly, he stopped his footsteps and noticed a sudden change in the battle situation. Seems like there is an interesting guy who just appeared. They don't need me anymore. The bald old man was startled and looked out the window. Suddenly, a crimson bullet penetrated through the rain curtain and shot the ammunition belt on one of the helicopter's machine cannons with extreme accuracy. The crimson round then cracked, and a flame erupted from within it in the heavy downpour. The helicopter, which had been acting all triumphant a moment ago, exploded in that instant as all the cannon rounds exploded at once. The high explosive round was not powerful by itself, but it ignited the fatal large caliber cannon rounds, which were as powerful as land mines. Those in the helicopter were all killed. In the half ruins of the left fortress, Han Zio, who fired that shot, cocked his sniper rifle to unload the cartridge that was still smoking hot. His eyes were serious and calm. He had hit the cannon rounds on the helicopter's ammunition belt from an extremely obscure angle. However, this shot had also caused several bad consequences. The other Y-5 Snake helicopter aimed all its firepower at the left fortress. In addition, the enemy ground troops knew that the helicopters were their trump card. Therefore, they all cooperated and fired at the fortress together. A terrifying number of rounds smashed the rain curtain and exploded on the left fortress. Big Beard Guy's face turned ghostly pale as he thought he was going to be blown up in pieces. How could he run faster than the cannon rounds with his two short legs? Right in his moment of desperation, he suddenly felt a large hand picking him up by the scruff of his neck and a great force that dragged him along to run away at lightning speed. The next instant, the entire left fortress blew up into ruins. If it had been a second earlier, Big Beard Guy would have been blown to smithereens. After escaping from danger, Big Beard Guy felt his collar being released. His butt landed right on the ground. Big Beard Guy did not bother with thanking Han Zio for saving his life before he asked in shock, "How did you run so fast?" "Because I am as free as the wind." Big Beard Guy was completely dumbfounded. "What kind of crap are you talking about?" As soon as Han Zio finished quipping, his both feet landed on the ground. His electromagnetic hover boots then lit up with a dark blue glow, and electromagnetic force blasted out of them, causing Han Zio to slide out swiftly as he was skating on ice. He was moving faster than a car, and so, with 2 to 3 slides, he reached the top of the raft of the outside wall. Much to the mercenaries' astonishment, Han Zio was dashing left and right rapidly like dark-colored lightning on the wall raft. No enemy could accurately lock onto him. He dodged all enemy fire. "See my majestic skill." Han Zio started sniping whilst he was moving around at high speed. The field of vision for sniping was a few times greater there than that in the left fortress. His snipe skill, which had just reached LV9, could control the entire battlefield. The movement provided by the hover boots was smooth and steady, so Han Zio did not spend much of his effort controlling the boots. The difficulty in controlling the boots was only as high as those commercial electronic skating shoes. Therefore, the high-speed movement did not affect the accuracy of Han Zio's shots significantly. The most useful bullet was always used at the most appropriate time and place. For instance, when a vehicle was attempting to fire a grenade at one of the manor's machine guns, a flash bullet appeared at the most opportune time and made the enemy fire at the wrong angle. You are currently sniping while on the move. You learned a technique. Han Zio's eyes brightened. This skill could only be triggered when the snipe skill was above LV8. Han Zio evaded the majority of attacks from the enemies with the help of the hover boots. However, the enemies recognized his area control ability as a sniper. They would have much difficulty taking the next step without bringing him down. Thus, Han Zio soon felt their intense enthusiasm, and he once again received concentrated fire from the enemies. At this moment, the mercenaries in the manor started fighting back and actively complement Han Zio's battle tactics. Someone once said that if one reviewed one's previous life, one would realize that one's wrongdoings in the past would come back to haunt one. If those words were true, Han Zio felt that he was bound to become a haunted house owner, surrounded by hateful specters, since every enemy that he killed stared hard at him with vengeful, angry eyes. The enemies planned to suppress Han Zio with heavy fire failed badly. The troops working with Han Zio managed to relieve his stress and pressure. In turn, this brought out the best of his strength and made his fighting easier. The enemies realized their assault was going downhill. They started their retreat and left piles of dead bodies. The Y-5 Snake helicopter turned back and flew away from the site. The helicopter did not have the audacity to fly close to the ground. Chen Lai suspected that Mr. Black was a new member of the dark web, which would explain his rather low level. Based on his performance in the previous battle, as long as he survived, he could easily attain ghost level. Third round completed. You gained 150,000 EXP. Change in quest requirement. Fourth round requirement. Defend against 5 waves of attacks. Reward 40,000 EXP per wave. Special reward 100,000 EXP. Han Zio felt helpless. Why is it another defense mission? Can there be more variety? 3 forts have been destroyed, and many mercenary troops have also perished. Is the whole mission going to be an endless defense against enemy attacks? The only consolation is probably the experience and the special reward. Han Zio made his way to the logistics zone to start the repairs of the damaged equipment and replenish the exhausted ammunition. On his way there, he was met with looks of respect given by the mercenary troops. Their looks seemed like they had given the green light to let Han Zio be the leader of all the snipers in the force instead of the Hornet brothers. Han Zio was prepared to close his eyes to take a short nap when he heard a commotion emerging out of the communication device. The targets have appeared. Han Zio opened his eyes and looked toward the mansion. The bald old man and a fine-looking gentleman appeared behind the fences of the mansion. All the mercenary troops were alarmed, and they stared curiously at the targets that they were supposed to protect. When all the mercenary troops and assassins arrived before him, the bald open man started speaking. Thank you for the protection you guys have offered for the past few days. I will now call out the names of some of the guys whom I want to speak with. The bald old man chanted out a list of names. The names belonged to the commanders of the mercenary troops and assassins with outstanding performances in the mission. Mr. Black, which was Han Zio's code name, was also mentioned. He managed to recognize one of the guys. It is him, Bennett Anderson. No flashy adjectives were required to describe Bennett. In fact, one simple sentence was enough. Bennett was the main character of Planet Aquamarine. All the troops were looking at the selected individuals as they entered the mansion. The interior of the mansion followed a minimalistic classical style. Other than a chandelier hanging from the ceiling, there were no signs of extravagance in the other parts of the room. The bald old man sat on his sofa, and the friendly gentleman was standing behind him. Sit anywhere you want. The selected individuals took their seats on the sofas and chairs in the different corners of the room. Today, I called you guys here so that I could meet you all. Also, the mansion will be open for you guys to visit. If you guys want to, you all can even rest in the mansion. Wang Yuan. Never heard of the name before. Everyone looked at one another in confusion. You guys are the central force defending River Valley Manor, and once the mission is done, Wang Yuan said, I will hand out additional rewards to you guys in private. The eyes of many mercenary commanders lit up. The stipulated reward from the mission was supposed to be shared with all the fellow troops. However, an undeclared reward privately handed out to the commander need not be shared with their men. The hustle and bustle moved into the mansion, and soon, people began moving in and out of the mansion endlessly. Wang Yuan and Bennett stayed for a while before they made their moves. Han Zio moved quickly up to the two of them. Mr. Black, what's the matter? Wang Yuan gave a slight grin. He remembered the stunning performance by the sniper last night. It was still fresh in his mind. Han Zio looked at Bennett and said, I want to speak privately with him. Wang Yuan and Bennett both looked shocked. They looked at each other for a moment. Wang Yuan smiled and made his way to another side of the room so as to give Han Zio and Bennett their personal space. You are the legendary guy who was active back in the times of the old warring period. You previously trained in the Masai Horat training camp, which was directly under the Ordina Intelligence Agency. You were one of their best agents and a cold-blooded killing machine. Halfway through the warring period, you became the captain of the elite team of Ordina agents that went by the code name. You carried out hundreds of infiltration, sabotage, assassination, and covert operations. You left Ordina and became a traitor eventually. Your head is now worth a bounty of 15 million. After you defected, you disappeared for 2 years. Legend says that you were undergoing some tough training in the harsh terrain of the northern continent. You were supposedly hunting beasts in the Coroso mountain range. When you appeared once again, you became the strongest man on this planet. You entered the war again, but you did not help any of the parties involved in the war. Instead, you assisted the refugees in their escapes, and through that, you built a strong organization that was the predecessor of the existing dark web organization. Bennett was the main character of Planet Aquamarine. Even Gila could not be compared to Bennett at an equal standing. The rise of the goddess of death belonged to later versions. After listening to the words of Han Zio, Bennett was astonished. Han Zio was the first out of all his guards to actually point out his true identity. Even after decades, someone could still recognize him. Bennett had looked really cold, like a block of ice, in the past, and he looked completely different now. He really did change a lot, so how was it possible for his true identity to be recognized? The most probable speculation appeared in Bennett's heart. He asked hesitantly, "So, are you my fan? Admire you, my ass." Although Han Zio wanted to say that, he reckoned that it would be no fun offending Bennett. He still wished to extract some benefits out of Bennett. "Be serious, be serious." Han Zion made a dry cough. "I heard of your stories, and I have always wanted to meet you." Bennett gave a friendly smile and waved his hands. "Don't mention the things in the past. What did you want to speak to me about? It can't be for a signature, right?" Han Zio's eyes twitched. "All right, enough showing off." After regulating his breath, Han Zio gave a stern expression and said, "I heard you are the strongest human on this planet." Bennett's eyes flashed. He was too familiar with such an introduction. Perhaps it was another person that wanted to challenge him to a fight. The war created power beings that emerged from the flames and bloodshed of the battles. Bennett took pride in his amazing battle record. "I want to learn some combat techniques from you." "Interesting. You are the first person who has wanted to learn from me." Bennett contemplated for a moment before shaking his head. "You are a sniper. It's impossible for you to learn my combat tactics." As expected, Bennett used the same tactic again. It was Bennett's standard line when he wanted to reject someone. As long as the prerequisites were not met, the same line was thrown out to be used in rejections. It was always the same line. "You are a pugilist, it's impossible for you to learn." "You are a superhuman, it's impossible for you to learn." By merely changing the noun of the sentence, large numbers of players were rejected. Han Zio was not going to fall for this same trick. Bennett was a hidden general skills trainer, and gifts were required for him to actually teach the skills to a player. Over the next 2 days, the enemies carried out raids each night, as if they were a bunch of crazy monsters that could not have enough of night attacks. They extended their devilish clutches toward the manor. Han Zio took over the role of the Hornet brothers and was in charge of holding the ground. Reliable and stable were the perceptions that the troops had about Han Zio. Han Zio's fire support allowed them to have easier fights. A sniper who could control the entire situation of the battle was of indescribable threat. Deaths were bound to happen in a battle, and new troops and assassins arrived to replace those that were killed in action. That was to ensure that new blood was being injected and a robust fighting force was constantly present. Golden Fox was one of the new blood. She was a dark-level assassin. Once she entered the manor, there was someone to receive her. The mercenary leading the way took a glance at the perky ass of the Golden Fox. From the look in his eyes, one could tell he was aroused. The Golden Fox had long gotten used to the perverted stares of men, so she simply ignored that mercenary's action. "The situation is looking good. Although the enemies are attacking more frequently, our defenses are very strong and tight. The southeastern and northeastern sectors are managed by Mr. Black, so nothing will go wrong." The trooper laughed. "Mr. Black?" The Golden Fox was very sure that she had not heard of such a codename. She asked curiously, "Who is Mr. Black?" "Mr. Black is a Scorpion-level assassin. His sniping skills are unbelievably amazing." "Only Scorpion level." Golden Fox felt uneasy. She locked her brows. She did not trust the ability of Han Zio and said in a confused tone, "Isn't it too brash and unwise to let a Scorpion-level assassin to be in charge of the battle?" After she finished that sentence, Golden Fox realized that the mercenary leading the way was no longer friendly or attracted toward her. His eyes turned cold. He pointed in the direction ahead and asked Golden Fox to go to the place by herself. The man then turned around and walked away. Golden Fox was astonished. She had only questioned the ability of Mr. Black. Was it necessary for the trooper to make such a big reaction? Was Mr. Black really that reputable? That night, when the enemies approached, Golden Fox finally saw Mr. Black's performance and his ability to control the situation of the battle. She was shocked. It was as if Mr. Black possessed the legendary eagle eye and could see every corner of the battlefield. There were almost no missed shots. Even if some of the shots did not injure or kill the enemy, they played other vital roles such as to limit the enemies or to support the allies. Golden Fox realized that she had nothing to do on the battlefield. All the work was already settled by Mr. Black. The work of Mr. Black impressed the Golden Fox more than the total number of enemies he killed. As sniper, the Golden Fox realized how much work Mr. Black was actually doing. Mr. Black took all the work away from the other snipers. One Mr. Black could replace a team of snipers. She finally understood why the mercenary troops let a Scorpion-level assassin take charge of battlefield. "That is surely the strongest sniper I have seen. You defeated a wave of attackers." After seeing the enemy's retreat, Han Zio heaved a sigh of relief. Chen Lai called out to Han Zio through the communication device. "Mr. Black, someone from the Rothschild family is looking for you." He received the items from the delivery man. Or rather, the courier from the Rothschild family. The two items were the Silver Defender Leader's saber and the Lockhawk sniper rifle. The two items dated back to a few decades ago. They were no longer in production, and the countries that manufactured the items no longer existed. The two items were considered antiques. Bennett was an avid collector of antique weapons, and these items were the necessary prerequisites to learn the new skills. After Han Zio got the items, he immediately went to find Bennett. "Sit anywhere you want." Bennett was holding a cup of herbal tea in his hand, and after opening the door, he sat on the sofa and looked at Han Zio happily. He liked Han Zio as Han Zio was the first to recognize his true identity. "I want to learn fighting techniques from you." Bennett did not know whether he should laugh or cry. "I thought I said no." Is that the Silver Defender Leader's saber? The Silver Defender Leader's saber was manufactured in an ancient country that no longer existed. That country's weapons manufacturing techniques had a history of more than hundreds of years. Every weapon manufactured was considered as a prized piece that displayed great craftsmanship. There were only about 100 of such sabers left in the world. The saber was truly a classic. There were carvings of scriptures on the blade of the saber. The words inscribed were aesthetically pleasing, and every saber was carved with a different paragraph. The paragraphs were joined together to form a saga of the ancient country. "You want to give the saber to me? How did you know that I like collecting antique weapons? You must be my admirer." Han Zio was speechless. Indeed, what he was doing to Bennett was a little out of the ordinary. It was hard to explain why he wanted to give the saber to Bennett. He thought to himself, as long as I can learn new skills, I can accept any form of misunderstanding. Bennett thought for a while and then raised his head. He smiled at Han Zio and said, "Let's do it." Han Zio could feel his goosebumps rising, and he immediately retreated backwards. He held his hands in front of his body. His body was tensed up and prepared to face the upcoming move he expected from Bennett. "What are you thinking about?" "I meant that I am willing to teach you some skills." Bennett slapped his hand on his forehead. "Can you say the full sentence next time? You should clear up all these filthy thoughts in your mind." Bennett did not know how he should react. He shook his head and contemplated for a moment. He eventually confirmed the skill he wanted to teach Han Zio. "In the early days when I was weak and young, I experimented and discovered many fighting techniques. One of such techniques gave me the power to make a comeback when I was down. I named the technique. The brain is the protector of one's body but at the same time a limiting factor. If one can remove the limiting factor, even an average individual without any form of training will be able to release an immense amount of power. However, such a method takes a heavy toll on one's body. Once, when I was faced with danger, I unexpectedly unlocked the limiting factor, and with a few tries, I managed to uncover a way to remove the limiting factor for a short period of time without hurting my body." Bennett Anderson taught you the skill. Your intelligence exceeds 100 points and met the prerequisite to learn the skill. Your current progress is 3%. The lesson lasted all the way from morning to afternoon. The soothing voice from the interface highlighted Han Zio's progress up till the point when Han Zio mastered the skill entirely. Flaming Will LV1. The next attack will deal 130 to 150% of damage. There is even a small likelihood of 180 to 200% damage and a minute likelihood for 250 to 300% damage. Lastly, although super rare, there is a microscopic chance of 500% damage being dealt. The cooldown for the ability is 10 minutes. There were 100 Silver Defender Leader's saber, therefore, about 100 individuals could master the skill. Han Zio was one of them. After seeing the excitement in Han Zio, Bennett felt puzzled and asked, "You finished learning?" "Fast right." Han Zio beamed with pride. Bennett was shocked and could not believe what he heard. He moved backwards and said, "Give me a punch, and I will know if you have really mastered the skill." Upon hearing that, Han Zio, who could no longer wait to test out his new ability, threw a powerful punch at Bennett. "You used initializing. Initialization complete. Your next attack will deal 136% of the basic damage." The punch landed on the left side of Bennett's face. Bennett's face felt like an indestructible wall that was harder than steel. A -1 damage was shown above Bennett's head. Bennett stroked the cheek that had been hit by Han Zio's punch and said helplessly, "Don't hit my face. You are lucky it was just your face." Han Zio stared silently at Bennett for a moment. Bennett suddenly felt a cold wind breeze past the area between his legs. He gave a cold shiver and was puzzled. Was it an illusion? After bidding farewell to Bennett, Han Zio went back to his sniper post. He suddenly felt a weird sensation in his heart and turned back. The female sniper beside him was staring deeply at him. Han Zio did recognize the lady. She was known as Golden Fox and was a new assassin that had arrived at the site only yesterday. Han Zio felt his face a few times to confirm that he had a mask on his face. He was really confused. There is no way that she can see through the mask. How can she be attracted by my handsome face even when I have a mask on? Golden Fox walked forward to him. She had a pretty smile on her face and said cheekily, "Mr. Black, I was wondering if you can teach me some sniping skills." As she was speaking, Golden Fox surreptitiously squeezed her breasts with her hands to reveal her deep cleavage. "She's trying to seduce me." Han Zio squinted his eyes. Regardless of her intention, Han Zio had no interest in such seductions. He raised his hand before his body and said sternly, "Miss, please have some self-respect." Golden Fox's eyes flashed. She realized that Mr. Black was very resistant to sexual seductions. She immediately changed her strategy. Her expression turned from a sexy one to that of a helpless little girl who was seeking help. The sudden change was even faster than a Sichuan mask-changing show. She crossed her hands in front of her breasts and said breathlessly, I just want to ask you for some guidance. I don't have any other intentions." Han Zio rolled his eyes and said, "Miss, don't waste your energy. I don't like ladies." The expression on Golden Fox's face stiffened up, and she looked at Han Zio in astonishment and stuttered, You like? "No, I don't like men." Han Zio touched his china and said, "Actually, I am not even interested in humans. Or anything that is living." Golden Fox was completely dumbfounded. She lowered her head and said, sorry to disturb." She then turned around and ran away without hesitation. Han Zio laughed heartily. "Can't believe she tried to seduce me. She is just a greenhorn. Speaking of which, I was so popular with women back then. But that is all in the past, and it really meant nothing." After laughing to himself a couple more times, Han Zio suddenly stopped. He then gave a deep sigh and took out a cigarette and popped a light. At that moment, a car neared the manor. Han Zio looked over and was instantly shocked. The car was painted black. It had an emblem on the car's door. The emblem was a dragon that surrounded 3 stars. It was Division 13 Second's vehicle. Why is Division 13 here? Heeding the instructions given by Wang Yuan, the mercenary troops opened the gates and directed Division 13 Second's car into the manor. A leg wrapped in a combat-tight suit emerged out of the doors of the car. The leg was slender, and it drew plenty of the troops' attention. Once the boot landed on the ground, the first person to emerge out of the car was his old friend Dai Su. Dai Su had an air of arrogance, and it was as if she did not want to be approached by anyone. The other members of the team followed behind her. Some of the boorish troops were attempting to tease her with their wolf whistles, and they were checking out the beautiful figure of Dai Su. The group headed toward the mansion. Dai Su could feel a chill up his spine. There was also a cold feeling emerging within of her heart. She knew that she was locked onto by a very dangerous individual. She turned her head and saw a middle-aged man suited up in complete black leaning against the wall with his sniper staring at her. His look was actually pretty calming, but even with that, she could feel herself on edge and the chill in her heart as if she sensed some sort of impending threat. Who is that person? Dai Su was alarmed. She then felt a sense of familiarity about the man in black. Before she could even think about the issue, she entered the mansion. "Wang Yuan, long time no see," the old man leading the agents said. Although he said it with a poker face, the tone of his voice sounded like he had finally met his longtime friend. "Moran," Wang Yuan said, "it has been more than 10 years. You are one of the trump cards of Division 13, and I am the leader of the Dark Web organization. If not for the situation this time, we probably would not have met again." "Yeah," Moran nodded. "In the battles of the past 10 days, although they all took place outside the city, it also resulted in negative influences. The sounds of the cannons and the gunshots are too obvious. What are you guys doing?" Wang Yuan shook his head. "We, the original leaders of the Dark Web organization, want to maintain our neutral position. But some of the greedy higher-ups want to give up the neutrality as they are keen on the powers they might get if they take sides. They are eyeing for our leadership positions and want to replace us to gain control of the Dark Web organization. The attacks are all planned by these traitors. Xena is trying to track the location of these traitors through any clues she can find. Many of the attackers were wiped out, but we expect the traitors to make their last stand within these 2 days. Find me in Seagull City in 2 days. We need a proper catch-up," Moran said. With Bennett around, he was not worried about the security of Wang Yuan. After settling the important matters, Moran turned and left. Efficiency was Moran's style. The agents of Division 13 boarded the car and left the manor. After leaving the forest, Mo Ran asked the driver to pull over. He then stepped out the vehicle alone and said to the agents in the car, Dai Su Su, get some agents to monitor the battle situation together with you. Report back to me later. 2 days later, the bullet leapt out of the barrel of the sniper rifle and killed the final enemy sniper who was a few hundred meters away. The burnt smell of the smoky battlefield was very pungent. The enemy forces, which suffered a lot of casualties, retreated like a huge wave. Han Zio let out a deep breath and leaned against the wall to sit down. He closed his eyes to ease the tension in his heart. The enemies were getting stronger one wave after another. There were helicopters, armored vehicles, and small tanks. There were also a couple of strong superhumans and elite soldiers that appeared on the battlefield, which posed huge threats. The past 2 days in the manor had been very hectic and dangerous, as if they were all on a little boat stuck in a massive whirlpool. You defeated a wave of attackers. The 4th round completed. You gained 200,000 EXP points. The hidden request to prevent the appearance of Division 13 has failed. You activated the additional 5th segment of the mission. After pondering for a while, he then realized why he missed out the hidden request. If every one of his battles ended fast and decisively and created less commotion, perhaps Division 13 would not have entered the picture. However, such a request was too difficult. Even if he was able to find out about such a request, it would be very hard to accomplish it. Han Zio was not particularly upset about such a result. Ultimately, the odds of completing a hidden request were 50-50. 2 days earlier, in a dim abandoned warehouse, Bai Jin was in his hideout. There was a bolt of lightning surrounding his arm, and the lightning illuminated his face. There was a sense of eeriness in his eyes. Bai Jin flipped his palm, and the lightning bolt fused into his skin and vanished. Ding! The computer on the table in front of him lit up. He received a confidential email. Bai Jin clicked on the new mail. Target for assassination, Wang Yuan. Assignment location, East Star Dragon, 20 kilometers north of Seagull City, River Valley Manor. Bounty, 2 million. Bai Jin's eyes dimmed and muttered coldly, You really expect me to make a move when the bounty is merely 2 million? How can you put me on the same level as the other trash assassins in the market? He sent a mail back to reject the offer. A moment later, another email entered the inbox. The bounty had been raised to 6 million. That's more like it. Bai Jin gave a sly grin. There was an air of evilness and arrogance around him. All along, Bai Jin had only cared about the bounty he would receive. He had no other goals in mind. In the evening, Wang Yuan gathered everyone. I need to make a trip to the Seagull City to meet with Division 13. I need to bring some powerful individuals with me for protection, and the rest of you guys will remain here to guard the manor. Before anyone could even respond, Wang Yuan started pointing out the selected few. Moonlight, Volcano, Hunter, Golden Fox, and Mr. Black. I need you to protect me for this trip. I will raise the rewards for you guys. If you all are unwilling to do so, I will not force it upon you. No problem. Hunter was the first to respond. The other few agreed to the request. Han Zio knew that if he rejected the request, he would fail his mission. The team followed Wang Yuan into the vehicle and headed towards Seagull City. Han Zio realized that the people on the car did not speak at all. They all had an air of don't come and talk to me, I need to stay cool. Han Zio had trouble to find anyone to banter with. Looking behind him, Han Zio saw Golden Fox hiding in another corner, and she was staying as far as she could from him as possible. When Han Zio looked toward her, she immediately turned to avoid eye contact with Han Zio. I only made a small joke out of her. Is such a reaction really necessary? The night sky was studded with stars, illuminating Seagull City. This city of Star Dragon was a heavy industrial city. There were plenty of factories in the outskirts. The huge chimneys of the factories were like gigantic fingers pointing into the sky. Since the city was filled with factories, there was a unique sense of heaviness in the atmosphere of the city. The two cars drove all the way to the curfew area that fell under the jurisdiction for the Seagull City branch of the department. Only at the gates that blocked access to the area did the agent mention that weapons were not allowed into the cordon sector. Wang Yuan nodded. He then turned around and said to the assassins, You guys will spend a night in Seagull City. Assemble here at the same time tomorrow. After the instruction, Bennett and Wang Yuan entered the base. The assassins were left to themselves. Volcano was a massive Shanuk. He said in his deep voice, What do you guys plan to do? Hunter grinned and said, I'm going to the bar to have some fun. He then glanced at Golden Fox and smiled. Do you want to come with me? Golden Fox smiled and waved her hand to reject Hunter. Forget it, I am more interested in suave guys. Hunt was unhappy to hear the words of Golden Fox and snarled. Hunter, I'll go with you. Volcano laughed out loud. He looked in Moonlight and asked, "What about you?" Moonlight was expressionless. He solemnly replied, "I will be patrolling around here." Volcano then invited Han Zio to join them enthusiastically. Han Zio waved his hand to say no. Upon seeing that, Volcano did not continue to pressure Han Zio. As Han Zio walked on the street, he could sense someone in a black windbreaker hiding under the darkness of the night. His heart skipped a beat, and he felt that there was someone following him. Han Zio pondered for a moment and finally realized the reason. They should be the agents from Division 13. He maintained his walking speed and did not reveal any sort of anomaly. He knocked into the pedestrians on the road discreetly and stole the hard objects on their bodies, such as keys and cell phones. Once he turned a corner, he took out the hard objects from his pocket and threw them at all the CCTV cameras, shattering those cameras. Dai Su frowned hard and spoke into the communications set. "The target is very alert. Follow close." The agents in charge of tailing behind Han Zio dashed toward the target only to find that Han Zio had vanished into thin air. All the other assassins were being watched. Perhaps some of them already realized that they were being watched, but none of them accepted the man in black to try ditching the agents. Dai Su remembered that it was the man in black that sent chills down her spine. Check the footage of all the CCTV cameras in the city and find that man. The footage was quickly consolidated and analyzed using the facial recognition system. The results shocked Dai Su. There was no one that matched. The man could not be found. Wait, this scenario seems pretty familiar. I have experienced it somewhere before. Dai Su thought of Han Zio, who had vanished completely from the face of the planet. Shaking her head, she realized that she was probably thinking too much. It was unrealistic to think that every vanishing individual was linked to Han Zio. There were many in this world with great powers, and Han Zio was just one of the many. I have probably been under too much stress lately. The famous Street 53 located in the south section of the Seagull City was also known as the Antique Street. Li Xin was locking up the doors of her antique shop. Business at the shop had been bad lately, and she was preparing to end the operations for the day. The sound of knocks on the door was heard. Li Xin lifted her head in shock, and a very charming and handsome man was standing right her eyes, merely 20 centimeters away from her. Li Xin could feel her heart skipping a beat, and her face immediately blushed as if she had drunk too much alcohol. What do you want to buy?" The handsome figure knocked on the window and said, "Please let me in. I want to check out the antiques." "Oh, okay." Li Xin immediately opened the door and stared hard at the charming man. The man looked perfect from all directions. She tailed behind the man, and her hands were fidgeting nervously behind her back. The handsome man looked at Li Xin and smiled. He then asked, "Are you the owner of the shop?" He smiled. The power of his smile was simply too great and irresistible. Li Xin seemed like she wanted to just scream in excitement. Seeing that Li Xin did not speak, the man moved closer to her. Towering above her, he asked, "Are you the owner of the shop?" The moment the man approached, Li Xin could feel numbness in her brain. She was so excited to the point that she lost control of her 5 senses. She could not hear what he was saying, and she was all flustered. Seeing the look of admiration on Li Xin's face, Han Zio felt confused. He then touched the mask on his face. He thought to himself, "I wonder how I look like this time round." Han Zio decided not to beat around the bush and blurted out the reason for his visit. "Where is Tang Shu?" The expression on Li Xin's face changed drastically as she moved backward and knocked into the furniture. Han Zio lifted his shirt and revealed the pistol he was carrying. "Take me to him." The two of them arrived at a dilapidated factory that had been abandoned for years. Li Xin knocked on the door shakily. A skinny old man appeared before their eyes. The man looked as if he was severely dehydrated, and one could not help but worry that the old man was weak to the extent that it was highly likely for him to be blown away by a strong gust of wind. The old man looked especially creepy, like a rat. Anyone that saw how the old man looked like would lose his appetite and feel disgusted. The eyes of the old man scanned the area like he was preparing to escape at any moment. Tang Shu was indeed a fitting name for the creepy old man that looked like a rat. Tang Shu was both a robber and a mysterious businessman. The items he sold were all rather unique and out of this world. "Hold it right there. If you dare move an inch, there will be another hole in your ass." Han Zio fired a warning shot at the area slightly in front of Tang Shu. Tang Shu immediately halted in his steps. His body stiffened, and he was too afraid to fidget. He broke into a cold sweat, stuttered, Did Jack send you here? After I complete my latest trade, I will definitely return the money I owe him. I have nothing to do with Jack. I am here for something else." What? Tang Shu thought hard about all the people he had once offended. There were too many of them, and he could not think of who exactly was before him. He was completely flustered. "I want to be part of your latest business deal. The normal route to activate the mission involved gaining the trust of Lai Xin, since she was the one that would take the players to Tang Shu, who would then trigger the mission. Han Xiao took the unconventional path and instead threatened both Tang Shu and Lai Xin with his brute force. Although I do not know why you are here to help, you look really sincere. Tang Shu glanced at Han Xiao's pistol and coughed. Anyway, we welcome you to the team. You use 2,000 EXP points to trigger the mission. Mission brief: Lai Xin's family heirloom was forcibly taken away by the city museum. You are required to help to retrieve the treasure. Requirement: return 10 pieces of the antique items back to Lai Xin. Lai Xin's father had 10 pieces of prized antiques. After the city museum got their hands onto this piece of information, the chief curator of the museum dropped by to convince her father allow for the display of these treasures at the museum's gallery. He claimed that these items were very valuable and had huge historical and cultural significance. The chief curator had a glib tongue and he managed to persuade her father to agree to his request. After her father passed away, Lai Xin tried to retrieve the antique items from the museum, but the greedy and despicable curator acted as if the items were wholly owned by the museum. When shall we move? Anytime, as long as you're ready, Tang Shu replied. Han Xiao nodded in agreement. Tang Shu glimpsed and turned, rubbing his hands. How shall we split the reward? He asked, smiling humbly in the process. Han Xiao waved his hands. I don't need that reward of yours. Let's act quickly, I have limited time to work with. Hang on, if he isn't after the money, why is this uninvited guest participating in the heist? Lai Xin's heart began beating loudly, and scenes of various dominant CEOs came into her mind. Her two hands were placed over her heart, and she stared at Han Xiao in adoration. Could it be because of me that you are thinking too much? Han Xiao and Tang Shu spent over an hour traveling to the other end of the city to get to the municipal museum. It was already late into the night, so the gates of the municipal museum had closed. Tang Shu held onto the map and explained the plan. The municipal museum has 3 floors in total. The first and second floors are exhibition halls, and the third floor is the staff area. Here are the blueprints. Our goal is on the north exhibition area of the second floor. My plan is to sneak in from the window of the third floor and then... Hey, where are you going? Tang Shu had yet to complete his sentence when Han Xiao walked toward the door of the municipal museum with wide strides. Tang Shu could not call him back in time as Han Xiao raised his foot and kicked the front door open and flying. The sound of the slamming doors traveled through the entire street. Tang Shu was dumbfounded. What on earth? What about the plan of sneaking in? Han Xiao turned toward Tang Shu and shouted, Why are you still daydreaming? Get in now. What on earth are you doing? Tang Shu was stunned. That plan of yours is too complicated. It's just a museum. At the most, only a few cops will appear. Don't waste time playing Assassin's Creed. Playing Berserk is the best option. The two of them ran to their target on the second floor. Han Xiao broke the showcase without much hesitation and took the 10 antiques. Such extreme behavior immediately triggered the alarms, and the museum's guards, awoken from their sleep, rushed over. Thief, catch them quickly. Han Xiao ran with the antiques in his arms, while Tang Shu followed behind hurriedly. They were soon back at the entrance of the museum, only to see 4 cops already blocking the way out. Han Xiao, with the antiques in his arms, was unable to raise a fist, so he turned to Tang Shu. It's your time to shine. Tang Shu pointed at himself with a look of disbelief. Do I look like someone who can fight to you? You chose this plan, so shouldn't you be the one to fix the situation? While they were still conversing, the guards rushed over. Stop hesitating. Han Xiao kicked Tang Shu's butt, and he flew toward guards. There, I gave you a boost. The guards swung their batons. Tang Shu was terrified, and he anxiously took his crowbar out to defend himself and fight off the guards. However, his head was beaten into a bad shape in one round of fighting. He could not take the pain and rushed back to Han Xiao, crying, It's impossible. I'm just too weak. Tisk, let me teach you a mysterious spell that would double your combat ability. Say it after me, Ruwa. Then, Han Xiao kicked the Tang Shu back toward the group of guards while he was still confused by what was happening. Tang Shu was not able to go against Han Xiao, and he became extremely furious. He could only vent his anger by hitting hard on the guards, and he managed to take down 2 guards. However, he was soon concussed by a strike to the back of his head from one of the guards, and as a result, stars started appearing before his eyes. He ran back to Han Xiao, crying out desperately, I really can't do this anymore. I am begging you. You have a gun, and you can fight so well. Can you please finish them off? I can't help you even if you beg me. Han Xiao did not move an inch, and without a second's hesitation, he kicked Tang Shu back into the fight scene for the 3rd time. I'm supporting you in spirit, and if you really need, I can give you a buff to enhance your combat ability. Tang Shu was in a tight spot. He eventually took down the guards with much effort. His face was fully battered, and he was panting heavily. Suddenly, he felt a gush of wind blowing past him. Han Zhao had run out of the door. You'd better wait for me. Tang Shu followed behind closely, flustered and exasperated. The alarm suddenly sounded, and the 4 police officers who were patrolling nearby quickly rushed over. They blocked the entrance of the alley. As they saw Han Zhao, who was carrying the bags, they immediately drew their guns and aimed him. Don't move. To the side, Tang Shu was dumbfounded. Suddenly, Han Zhao grabbed Tang Shu's throat and used him as cover. He took out his pistol and pointed at Tang Shu's head. Place all the guns on the floor. I have a hostage. Tang Shu was stunned beyond comprehension. What kind of plan is this? The 4 cops had looks of disbelief on their faces. They were lost for words. A young cop could not help but say, "Who are you trying to kid? He's your accomplice." Tisk, I guess that plan didn't work. Han Zhao pouted. Tang Shu turned his head around and shouted at Han Zhao, "Did you actually think that could succeed?" "Well, I was just trying my luck. We had nothing to lose anyway." Han Zhao then threw the bags into Tang Shu's hands and grabbed him by his collar. Within a split second, he activated his electromagnetic hover boots and rushed toward the entrance of the alley. The 4 cops were shocked by the bursting speed, and they simultaneously fired their guns in his direction. But his magnetic armor deflected all the shots. Han Zhao's crossed his arms, and using the extreme speed at which he is moving, he rushed toward the cops like a bowling ball. Strike! The wind gushed past them, and Tang Shu's mouth was wide open whilst he was being dragged by Han Zhao. The wind gushed down his throat, and his lips fluttered as a result. Even though Han Zhao noticed Tang Shu was in a state of discomfort, he still decided to increase his speed further. Mo Ran's office of Division 13 2nd Seagull City Branch. 3 assassins were killed last night. Moonlight, Volcano, and Hunter Dai Su reported to Mo Ran. The wounds are all very similar. They seem to have been cut by a sharp object at an extremely high speed that either pierced through the heart or slit open the throat. Based on evidence collected from the surroundings, the fight lasted less than 10 seconds. These 3 assassins were not weaklings, especially Moonlight. He had the ability to absorb energy, which gave him a boost in physical strength. Since the killer easily got close to the 3 assassins, his ability must have been extremely lethal. Is there any footage? No. The murderer must have chosen locations where there are no surveillance cameras. Are there any suspects? Mo Ran asked. With a hidden ability, extreme speed, and the ability to killing other elite assassins and Aspers with the snap of a finger, there seems to be a matching character on the danger list. Invisible Demon. Wang Yuan's face turned dark. It's him. Invisible Demon, a terrifying killer, used to be a convict on death row, but he was chosen as a subject for an experiment. As a result of the experiment, his whole body started to change. Other than the eyes, his entire body had an ability to adapt to the surroundings and blend in with the environment. He basically became an invisible man. Furthermore, the Invisible Demon also awakened his own Asper ability, which was extreme reflex and speed. This gave him the ability to escape from the facility. Since then, he had been active in the underground world and became a mysterious killer that no one knew much about. It is not cheap to hire the Invisible Demon. How much dirty money have these traitors pocketed from the organization? Mo Ran, please get the people following my assassins to inform them to gather immediately. Dai Su was helpless. Golden Fox is resting in the hotel, but Mr. Black has gotten rid of his tail. Wang Yuan was dumbfounded. Please send some people to try their best to look for him. The demon was a sniper's worst enemy. Even Bennett believed Han Zhao would most likely not survive the attack. Although he liked Han Zhao and wanted to save him, he was burdened with the responsibility of protecting Wang Yuan, thus unable to help him. He could only pray for that Han Zhao could keep himself safe. The instant the eyes appeared, Han Zhao activated his magnetic armor to cover his back and his neck. The next instant, sparks deflected off the surface of the armor as if the armor had been hit by a sharp weapon dozens of times within the split second. He had long known about the dangers this mission would bring, so he had always remained prepared to engage in battle. This was how he managed to react so quickly. The enemy is invisible. Han Zhao immediately realized the issue at hand. Suddenly, Han Zhao slid backward before he drew out his guns and fired at the place where the sound was heard. However, the rounds did not land on the enemy. Storage compartments were shattered instead, and bullet marks appeared on the wall. The invisible enemy struck the armor again, giving out a harsh grating sound. The movement is too fast. Hanzao could only use his reflexes to preempt the strikes and then shield himself with the armor. Fortunately, his armor covered 3/4 of his body. As long as he protected his vitals, the threat of the enemy was greatly reduced. Invisible Demon, LV-44 and extremely high agility. His invisibility is only limited to his bare body, which means the weapon he used to attack me are his nails, and he is moving around entirely naked. Talk about decency. Strike after strike hit Hanzao, and he blocked each one with his armor. He then took some candy-sized electric bees and threw them into the surroundings. The electric shock bees, also known as bee colonies, had stingers that carried a dangerously high voltage that could cause temporary paralysis upon contact. Hanzao accidentally discovered the blueprint when he was making the hover boots. The demon could escape with his speed, but the space that he could move within was heavily constrained, and as a result, his attack rate was reduced. Bang bang bang. Hanzao fired non-stop, but the shots were all dodged. The demon was even faster than Pan Kwang. Hanzao changed the magazine and loaded the HAME rounds. He then fired insanely. Green toxic gas filled the air within the small space, engulfing both of them. You have been mildly poisoned. You will lose 3 HP per second for a minute. You will remain in the poison state for as long as you are within the range of the poisonous gas, and the degree of damage will continue to increase. If the invisible demon attacked, he would be injured by the poisonous gas as well. Hanzao was fearless as he had brought along with him a low-level health potions. With his HP over 2000, he turned the battlefield to his advantage and managed to defeat the opponent's invisibility ability. The situation was in a stalemate. The invisible demon was unable to deal with him, nor could Hanzao shoot down the invisible demon. Upon second thought, he decided to abandon on the comfortable situation he had created. He activated his hover boots and fled from the battlefield. As expected, the demon chased after him. He pretended to control the armor slowly, showing his flaws to the demon. Unsurprisingly, it then scratched him forcefully on his back. Despite being racked with pain from the demon's claws, Hanzao maintained a straight face. This was all to test the impact of the demon's attack on his body. You have been attacked by invisible demon. You have lost 37 HP. Just one attack and I've lost almost 40 health points. Furthermore, the attack frequency is extremely high. Lucky I am wearing my magnetically controlled armor, or else my blood level would have depleted within 10 seconds. After numerous trials and tests using different speeds of the hover boots, he finally estimated the speed of the demon. Hanzao fished out his phone and called Antonio to bring the second-generation rover over. After putting down the phone, he then concentrated on baiting the demon. Baiting was not an easy technique. The key was to ensure that the enemy never realized that he had a trump card. The game of chase lasted for a few minutes. Suddenly, Hanzao sensed that he was no longer in crisis. He came to a stop before surveying the environment, when he realized that the invisible demon had not fallen for the trick and fled moments ago. The invisible demon was always on his feet. Initially, when Hanzao released the poisonous gas, the demon had already planned to retreat. However, Hanzao gave up on his favorable environment and acted as though he was unable to withstand the damage caused by the gas. As a result, the demon took the bait and caught up quickly. Even though there were no loopholes, the invisible demon noticed something was amiss almost instantly. This made him feel threatened, so he decided to retreat, giving up on the target decisively. After some time, Antonio arrived with his van. He looked left and right, then asked, "Where's the enemy?" Ran away. Hanzao hopped onto the van and simply said, "Let's return to the plane. I need to fix the equipment first and then think of a new plan." "Do you really take me for your driver?" Antonio had no choice but to drive Hanzao to the airport. The battle between Hanzao and the invisible demon created a great commotion. Division 13 investigated and discovered traces of the battle. A sniper, not afraid of being killed by the invisible demon, and even managed to force the demon to flee. Bennett's eyes shone with surprise. Where is he now? He is related to Ferry and Company. He is on that company's aircraft at the moment. He should be preparing and fixing his equipment now, Wang Yuan replied. Let's not alert him yet. Moran, can I trouble you to have someone send a message to ask Mr. Black to come to River Valley Manor tomorrow morning? All right, Moran nodded. Inside the aircraft, Hanzao was busy fixing the magnetic armor. At the same time, he thought about the construction of the magnetic gun. The most suitable type of gun would be a sniper, as it could complement his movement ability and maximize the gun power at the same time. With 7 talent points, Hanzio spent 5 points to upgrade. He then constructed many magnetism-related blueprints as he penned down his ideas, regardless of their viability. Each skill set would be incorporated at least twice. With tons of blueprints in his hands, his brain juices were finally used up. He massaged his temples and sighed. I think that's enough, time to construct. Fairy & Company had no contacts through which to acquire materials in Seagull City. The electromagnetic materials that Hanzio had brought along with him were limited, yet it would be enough if he removed and reused the parts from his failed products. However, some of the parts might become worn out when the products failed. With that, the recycling rate was approximately 80%. At night, Wang Yuan and friends sat quietly in the car and made their way back to the manor safely. Xena has locked away all the traitors, and the operation this time was successful. Other than getting rid of the traitors, the organization can also start to implement your ideas, said Wang Yuan. Getting the 6 nations' help will be highly beneficial. With his aid, we will be able to escape the crisis. I am just afraid there will be ambitious parties eyeing our resources. This is a plan to save many innocent lives. I will deal with anyone who tries to get in our way. At that instant, Wang Yuan was about to speak when a sharp piercing sound reverberated outside the manor. The two looked outside the window and saw lightning shoot up into the sky. The manor gate was then struck by the lightning, and it was thrown into an armored vehicle. Someone flashing with light walked toward the gate, and it looked like the frightening lightning earlier had been shot from him. The strong gate, which had withstood a storm of bullets, had been instantly destroyed. He shot up 10 meters into the air and blasted his original spot on the ground. A strong burst of electricity flashed, burning the cornea of every mercenary on the ground. Boom! The area where all the machine guns were located was blasted. A few of the mercenaries who were struck by the light were electrocuted before they could even utter a word. The smell of smoke filled the entire area. The impact of this battle left all of them shocked. With the death of Volcano and Moonlight, there was no one in the manor strong enough to defeat the enemy. Even Mr. Black was not around. We can't defeat this level of superhuman. A mercenary backed away fearfully. Chen Lai's eyes were fierce with determination, and he gave the order to start the attack again. When he saw that the mercenaries still had the will to fight, he smirked coldly. Bunch of idiots not knowing your limits. He then raised his hands and thrust his palms forward. An invisible electromagnetic pulse spread across the manor and damaged all electronic components, resulting in total darkness. The mercenaries were all shocked. Even the vehicles were damaged, so there was no way to escape even if they wanted to. Despair filled the air quickly. Wang Yuan took a look at Raging Bolt, and his face darkened. Raging Bolt Baijin's power is the generation and control of lightning. He's a superhuman with great potential, and he has been very active in the criminal underworld in recent years. Oh come on, it's just a young man. Let me deal with him since the lads outside can't handle him. Bennett maintained the same expression as he pushed open the window and jumped to the ground. Pushing aside the mercenaries, he captured all their attention as he walked toward Raging Bolt. Only then did they realize that there was someone who could defeat Raging Bolt. An array of hope shone upon them. What? There was actually a strong opponent. Raging Bolt excitedly licked his lips and mobilized all the energy stored in his body. No matter how many weak opponents I defeated, the pleasure of beating a strong opponent is just incomparable. Raging Bolt stared at Bennett with the eyes of a wolf. The vehicle of Division 13 was situated in the forest, monitoring any movement in the manor. Raging Bolt is way too powerful, thought Dai Su as she wiped away the sweat on her brow. I have to report this to Moran quickly as such threats could cause dire consequences to our city. Dai Su immediately picked up the phone and called Moran. On the screens, the battle between Bennett and Raging Bolt was ongoing. Both were about to release their strongest moves any time. It was the moment when everyone held their breath. However, Raging Bolt's chest suddenly burst into a bloody fog, following which, everyone heard an eerie gunshot from afar. Flaming Will, Hanzio shouted. Shouting was not required, but he felt that it would give him a higher chance of getting what he wanted. You activated. Your next attack will cause 180% base damage. Hanzio then pulled the trigger, and the exposed part of the gun glowed bright blue. The bullet flew out at such a high speed that the enemy could not react. The recoil was minimal, and it had little effect on accuracy. The blue light penetrated the body of the Raging Bolt, not allowing him to escape in time. Raging Bolt spat out blood as he fell to the ground. I cannot die here. Raging Bolt bit his teeth, holding back the pain as he was about to escape. Hanzio, who was hiding a distance away, shot Raging Bolt a second time, sending a bullet through his brain. The third shot then followed, shooting the left eye, causing red and white fluids to spill to the ground. Fatal attack. Raging bolt fell to the ground, his remaining eye full of despair. Everyone was stunned. Those 3 shots were like the god of death wielding a knife, taking away his life. The air of death had silenced the entire audience. Bennett heaved a sigh of relief. 3 shots. It had only taken 3 shots. A criminal who had taken the lives of many could actually be killed in seconds. The mercenaries around were shocked. The turn of the situation had exceeded their imagination. That thunder-like enemy had been defeated in just 3 shots. Impossible. In the distance, even Daisusu's tone trembled as she yelled, "Who shot that?" Footsteps could be heard creaking through the forest, and everyone's eyes immediately veered toward the sound, full of curiosity, awe, and fear. At that very moment, dark clouds gradually began covering the moonlight, and the silver moonlight faded into the clouds. Hanzao, who was in a black suit, walked out of the forest with the moonlight shining on the bottom half of his face. The moonlight seemingly backed away as he advanced, and darkness was following his every step. It was as if he was bringing about nightmares with the darkness. He was a spirit concealed in the night. This scene made him look ever so cool and led everyone to hold their breath for that moment. This very moment was deeply ingrained into everyone's memories. Mr. Black. It's him. Everyone gasped in shock, for they knew Mr. Black was extremely strong. But little did they know he was this powerful. Well done. It wasn't much, Hanzao replied, modest as always. Stunning 3 shots. This old man here was shocked by you as well. You're too polite. Hanzao waved his hand and glanced at Bennett next to him. With him around, you won't even be in any risk. Wang Yun smiled. I've checked the file. The Rothschild family introduced you to this mission. Your strength widely exceeds the level of Dark. I will raise your level directly to Ghost. This was an obvious act to gain his favor. An immediate promotion to Ghost made Hanzao surprised. He nodded, accepting Wang Yun's kindness. In the woods, Daisusu had solemnness written all over her face. She reported on Hanzao's performance. Mr. Black possesses immense sniping ability, and his lethality is hard to behold. I suggest that we add him to the Extreme Threats target file. Permission granted, Moran responded. Division 13 had a database for all extremely dangerous targets, and this was also called the Extreme Threats file. Hanzao's performance had already attracted their attention, especially the fact that he was a sniper. The 5th round has been completed. You gained 30,000 EXP points. The hidden request to ensure that Bennett did not join the battle has been completed. This time there was not an additional mission segment, which meant that the chain mission had ended. Finally completed this mission, Hanzao felt more relaxed. He went on to find Bennett and gave him the Lockhawk sniper rifle. You're giving me another present. Bennett was bewildered, noting that this present was to his liking yet again. He could not help but ask, what request do you have? I would like to learn the art of combat. Why is he saying this again? Bennett's head hurt. After thinking for a while, he decided to teach a set of skills suitable for Hanzao's sniper ability, and began to explain. In my early years, I was once an assassin known for my stealth. Perhaps these skills can help you a little. After hearing Bennett's explanation for over an hour, Hanzao was awarded with a new mission. You have triggered Level D mission. Task summary. You have learned some special skills from Bennett's explanation, but you still need practice them to perfect them. Mission requirements. Complete 5 assassination missions in the dark. Reward, class, Night Stalker. This was a class that Hanzao had long wanted to attain from Bennett to be able to learn stealth skills, critical strike bonuses from stealth hits, and other skills. Coupled with his Flaming Will and Ghost Sniper Rifle, he could perfect the art of stealth battles. I can tell that your energy is not strong, but your lethality is unfathomable. Here's my number, you can find me anytime you need me. Who knows, I may need your help in the future as well, what do you think? Sure, Hanzao blinked, promptly recalling one of Bennett's main story missions. Since he had no objection to this, they exchanged numbers. Hanzao drove back to Seagull City Airport and departed on Ferry & Company's plane. Having leveled up through 2 highly rewarding missions, Hanzao had accumulated tons of experience. The list of killers in the darknet had a shocking major change. An unknown killer by the name of Mr. Black was added, and among the 1,000 names, he skyrocketed to number 23 on the killer list. I've never heard of this name before. Where did he come from? Mysterious and powerful, Mr. Black's codename became known by everyone in the underworld. It entered the list of people to take note of for many forces. Thorns was traveling alone in the endless plains of Karst. The vehicle definitely looked scary and threatening, like a spiky porcupine. The vehicle was dragging a huge container as it traveled. There were huge batches of raw materials worth millions stored in the container, all of which had been purchased by Hanzao in a single consignment. Han Zio was the only one on the car. As he was driving, he was looking at the radar coordinates. He was heading toward the ruins known as Grey Metal Ruins. Before Han Zio carried out the plan for his assault on the Germinal organization, he planned to create a secret base for him to deposit supplies and round up weapons and essential equipment. That was to ensure that he had a place to retreat to if his mission failed. Han Zio knew this place very well. In fact, this base was also his in his past life. However, it was unfortunately taken over by a guild. At that point in time, Han Zio had still been a young lad who was easily bullied by others. However, when he looked at the base again now, he realized that the base had great defensive infrastructure in place. As long as he was able to supply electricity to the building, the base was practically impregnable to attacks. He switched out the faulty items in the power station and connected the electric cable from the military base to his new solar-powered generator. When Han Zio returned to his base, the base was already powered up. The lights were switched on, and the interior of the base was clearly shown before his eyes. The base, which had been covered in darkness for so long, was finally embraced with light. The solar-powered generators were clean, efficient, and discreet. Han Zio started to clean up the base. Due to the prolonged period of inactivity, everything was covered in a layer of filth. It was while he was cleaning that he started to miss Liu Kaiyan, who had superb housekeeping skills. Han Zio had not seen Liu Kaiyan for some time, and her cooking was something he longed for. I wonder what her reaction is for leaving without a word. Thinking back to Old Man Liu's repeated recommendation of his granddaughter, Han Zio could not help but smile. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.